Hi, my name is Richard Merritt, and we're here at New Hampshire Hostas in Southampton, New Hampshire. And believe it or not, it is the first day of spring 2015. I'm going to talk today about how to care for your container plants, more specifically how to keep your container hostas going to make them look good all year round. And I had a question from Chris by email. And this is what she wrote, and this is what's prompted me to do this little snippet of a video. Chris wrote, I have a hosta plant that I planted 3 years ago in a 1.5 gallon cement planter. The first year it had 3 stems with 2 bloom stalks. The second year, last year, it had 7 stalks with 5 bloom stalks. This year it is coming up out of the soil and I count 13 stalks. Will this hosta adjust to the size of the container, or do I need to divide it this fall so I won't kill it? Well, by stalks, Kristen means eyes, and that's the way the hosta multiplies. And she doesn't say what variety she has or where she's living, but that doesn't matter. I'm going to talk in general terms, and hopefully you can adjust what I say to your climate. So whether you're living up in Maine, down in the southeast, or up in the Pacific Northwest, or somewhere in between, you know your climate better than I do, and I'm going to talk in generalities. So let's go inside and I'll show you some containers that I have that I think are getting close to being divided, and we'll do it and talk about it. Okay, so we're back in the greenhouse here. This is the potting bench where we do some of our transplanting, and I've got on the bench here our potting soil mix, which I'll tell you a little bit about. When you plant in containers, you cannot use straight garden soil. In fact, it shouldn't even be one of your ingredients. What I suggest is that you go to your local garden center and ask them for the best potting soil that they have. And then also buy a compost, a good compost, not a real dark black one, but something of a grade like this. This is compost material, but it's not fully composted down. In other words, it hasn't turned into a dark muck yet. That's a very heavy product, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's still good, but I prefer this one because it makes the soil more friable. It allows more airspace in the soil so that the roots can breathe, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But one of the important parts in any soil container or in the ground is that there's air in the ground, and so that the roots can exchange oxygen and breathe. So our soil is a mixture of a good grade potting soil, all artificial ingredients except for perlite, which is puffed rock, and then we add our compost, about 50-50. So this is Paradise Power, and you've seen this in my other videos. We're going to show it to you. I love this one because the colors of Paradise Power, the yellow with the darker edges, just contrast beautiful with this blue pot. And it's vertical. The pot's a little vertical. It just does it for me. I think that you should grow whatever pot you like and whatever plant you like. Everybody's garden is different, and you need to grow something to suit yourself. But I happen to like the idea of the yellow and the blue. And Paradise Power is a sport of sun power, and so it can take a little bit more sun. I have it at the front of a greenhouse, which is still partly sunny area, and it grows just great, and we water it frequently. I don't have a saucer under it, but you can put a shallow saucer under your pots, especially during summer when you want to retain a little bit more moisture. But don't put a deep saucer, and don't put it in during heavy rain periods like spring and fall. Just take it away and let that water drain out. This you also saw in our videos. This has a plant of praying hands, which is a very vertical upright. I cheated. I saw this, it's sort of a Grecian urn type pot with a praying hands in it in a garden. And praying hands is a beautiful plant. It's very unique. There's hardly any other plants that compare to it in the hosta world. But if you put it in your garden, it gets lost. Even though it's a great focal point, for some reason in the garden it gets lost. One thing is it's not that tall. But in a pot, you can put that pot in a focal point situation, and the vertical, slightly spread out foliage resembling praying hands somehow complements this pot. And this has been in about 5 years. I'm not going to do it for you today, but I'm ready to divide that. So what I'm suggesting, and what I told Chris, was I think mostly they last about 5 years in the pot. And that's just average. There's a lot of factors that go into how soon that your hosta is going to fill the container that you chose for it. Not the least of which are soil, your fertilizer program, how you're watering, the weather conditions you've got, the size of the pot you chose, the size of the plant you chose, the genetics of the plant you chose. Some of them grow very fast, some of them grow very slow. And by the way, I think the ones that grow very slow, like praying hands, Brother Stefan, June, Touch of Class, some of those are the slowest growing plants, but they're some of my favorites. And being slow growing, they will actually stay in a pot longer before you have to lift it. Now, one thing with using compost in soil, that compost does break down as it's supposed to, and it naturally goes down. So what I do, so that I don't have to repot every year and lift and change the soil, although you could if you have nothing better to do, I remove a little bit of the soil. As you can see here, it's dropped down. So I remove a little bit of this, and then I top dress with straight compost. Probably an inch, maybe 2 inches at the most, depending on the size of the plant. A jumbo or a giant, you can obviously put it a little bit deeper. If you're looking at a miniature pot and plant, you're going to put it a lot shallower. It's just common sense. You don't want it too deep, that it smothers the roots or shields any of the leaves from the sun. So that prolongs it. Along with that, introduction of new compost every spring, I do a little bit of light liquid feed. And I just try to use a complete liquid feed. In other words, one that has the micronutrients as well as the NPK. And there are any number of them out there. You don't want to overdo it. And you do want to remember that a liquid fertilizer is very short lasting. It's quick to react. It'll give you a quick reaction, but it's also quick to leach out and disappear. Although having more compost in your soil will slow that process down, because chemically the fertilizer can bond to the organic matter and stay available longer. That said, an organic fertilizer would be even better. Slow release is the name of the game. You don't want it all releasing out at once. You want it to come out and be available to the plant gradually over the length of the growing season, which is the way it is in nature, and you're trying to replicate nature to get your best growth. Okay, so this is the container of Paradise Power. I believe it's been in the pot for 3 growing seasons. I also want to be honest with you, I think it could stay there for another 1 or 2. But for the purposes of this video, it's a sacrificial lamb and it's going to get divided. It probably is 5 years old total from a division. In other words, a 1 to 2 year old plant went into the pot to get it started. And it's grown very well. Last year it was beautiful, and it has looked better. It would probably look even better next year if I didn't disturb it, but in the interest of education, I'm going to chop it in half. My storage, by the way, is essentially a root cellar. It is about 40 degrees at the coldest. And look, you can see it came out of storage, so it is below 40 degrees. There is some frost or some ice. It just came out of storage a few moments ago. And so it did go, and I believe that was against the outside cement block wall, and that's probably why it was frozen there. So it tells me if I'd had some insulation, I would have been better. But the plant is fine. It's been in there every year. It's still moist. This is the moisture content that it went in with. Because it's a root cellar, the moisture is trapped in there. Winter storage, it's a tough thing to describe to you. Root cellar is optimal, but I know not many of you have root cellars. As you go north, you need more protection. As you go south, you need less. It varies from year to year. People in our area have stored them outside for years on like a porch, like an east-facing porch, and gotten away with it. And then last year, temperatures went too low and they lost them. If they had been in an attached garage under the same situation, they probably would have been fine. You just have to, wherever they are, you have to protect them from voles. So you look at our vole video on how to use castor oil to protect them in storage. But let me see what this has for eyes. So what I'm recommending is that you shake off as much soil as you can without losing any root. And I don't know if I can do this completely for you today because I've got a partial ice ball here, but we're going to give it a try. And you can see the roots, and they were not fully extended down into the pot, and so that tells me that it could have stayed in there a lot longer. And another thing you can do to extend the growing time is you can take it out like I have, put some fresh soil in the bottom of the pot on top of your drainage, which this drainage is going to go back in, and that will raise it up, and and give the roots some fresh soil to go into. And also do the same thing on the top. Now what I'm doing is I'm loosening the soil, but I'm not cutting off any root. The only cutting of root, and I don't think it's going to happen, although maybe I'll cut where the frost isn't, because the knife won't go through the frost. And because it's frozen, the eyes did not start to come up, but there they are. I can see them. And you probably can't, but it looks to me like there's probably 10 to 15 eyes right around the center, and they haven't extended fully out into the pot, which means that they've got more time to go in this pot if I was to let them. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to saw it in half. And as far as propagation goes, you can also look at the video I did about 5 years ago. And there's a lot more detail in there. Everything I said in there applies to this, although in that video I'm talking about in the ground. But the same principles get carried over to the pot. The only difference is caring for the pot during the summer growing season and caring for the plant during the winter storage. So I am just going to try to saw it in half. What I've got is a stainless steel serrated knife, and let's see if that will do it. And it does. And I may be cutting some eyes in half, but there you have it. Here's the crown, if you can see it. This is where the eyes originate. This is root zone. This is crown, and the eyes come up from the top of the crown. If you don't have crown, you don't have any live plant. And by the way, it's this crown tissue that the voles are eating, because there's food storage, that's carbohydrate storage that the hosta stores in order to grow the following season. And it's that carbohydrate, it's like a potato or a parsnip or a carrot to the vole, and that's what they're looking for. So the frozen one I'll put back out into the garden, and or I might even try to find another blue pot and create another one. But I'm going to put the crockery. Now this pot happens to have 3 holes, so I need quite a bit of crockery to block those holes and yet let the water go down. And then I'm going to, well, most of you don't have a shovel like this, but just with fresh soil, I'm going to fill the pot up, probably a little bit overfilled. Too much. Crown side up, roots down, and set the crown about 1 inch below the top rim of the pot. So when the pot is full, The top of the soil line will be right where this glazing line is, and that's the line on this pot that you should come up to. You don't have that advantage to see on most pots, but on this one you happen to. And then the roots are spread out as much as you can. I have not done anything more than the one cut, so I didn't disturb much, and that crown cut will heal right over. The eyes will come up and the plant won't miss a beat. It's back in the middle of the pot. It's got fresh soil, and it will come up. It won't look very different, to be honest with you, than it did last year. Maybe we'll be able to show you in a subsequent video. So that's it for today. I hope that information was helpful for you. And if you have any questions, don't be afraid to ask. You can reach me at info@newhampshirehostas.com. And happy gardening.